Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and it's about 6:06, and welcome to the Planning Board's meeting of October 28, 2019, and the meeting is open. So I will do the invocation, and Ms. Hadiam will do the flag salute. Let us please stand up. Heavenly Father, as we begin this meeting, we ask that you would guide our thoughts and give us the wisdom to engage in sound deliberation. May our conduct create an environment of cooperation and kindness for all. Thank you for the opportunities you give us to serve you and this great city, and please help us to accomplish our goals. In your name I pray, amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Mr. Ramirez, may we take the roll call?
Yes, Chair. Board Member Liu?
Present.
Board Member Gamboa?
Present.
Board Member Hadian?
Present.
Vice Chair Rosati?
I am here.
And Chair Atakanian.
Present.
All the board is present.
Mr. Ramirez, any announcements for tonight?
No new announcements.
Okay. Well, I guess we can begin with the hearing.
There's no hearing items. There is a report to the board,
All right.
and that would happen after
Oral
Oral communications. Do we have any cards?
I believe we do, yes.
All right. Ms. Kate Spear. All communications are limited to 3 minutes. Welcome.
Good evening, board members. As you've seen me before, my name is Kate Spear. I'm speaking on behalf of Unite Here Local 11. We're the Hospitality Workers Union. We represent 31,000 hospitality workers across the Southern California and Arizona regions. We have about 400 Local 11 members that live in Burbank. We are very pleased to see that the city is taking its greenhouse gas reduction plan seriously and that it is pushing this plan forward. As you know, this Climate Action Plan, or CAP, was adopted in 2013. Yet its implementation has been pending since 2013. It's hugely important that the city recognize its own crucial role in the state's plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions, and an updated and enforceable CAP is instrumental in that process. We support the staff's recommendation to update the CAP, and we are looking forward to this next step in Burbank's progress as an environmental steward. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Spear. The next is Vicky Kirschenbaum.
Hi, thanks for this opportunity to speak. I am just thrilled to see that this is on your agenda for today. I hope you'll have a vigorous discussion, and I want to just build on what Kate just said, that we do have some terrific things in that 2013 plan. Sadly, the city has yet to get going on a lot of them. Some things are outdated. This is an excellent time to begin, and I'd love to see greenhouse gas reduction really a big part of looking at new development for our city. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Kirschenbaum. Next is Ronald Goldstein.
Good morning. Thank you very much for allowing us to speak and for taking up this topic of greenhouse gases. The Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change has determined that we need to get our greenhouse gases in line, and we need to do it in a hurry. All across the country, every city, every state, every nation needs to be engaged in curbing greenhouse gases, and I look forward to the continuing of this process. I have read this, one adjustment I'd like to see as we move forward in this process is that the word voluntary shows up much too much, and the word mandatory shows up very, very little. I think if a greenhouse gas reduction plan is to be effective, it needs to be compulsory, or much of it does. Otherwise, people will sign off on it. Oh, yes, interesting idea, and it will not get done in terms of the programs. If left up to us, a lot won't happen. I'd certainly like to see some teeth in the program. It'll make a big difference. I appreciate the time. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Goldstein. And now it's time for the actual report presentation. Status update on the 2013 Greenhouse Gas Reduction Plan.
Good evening, Chair Atukinian and members of the board. My name is Karen Pan, Administrative Officer with Community Development Department. Tonight, I'll be providing you a status update on the 2013 Greenhouse Gas Reduction Plan. For this item, staff recommends to receive and file this information and also provide staff with input regarding the city's greenhouse gas reduction plan and the proposed 2020 update. This presentation is broken into 3 parts: the background, assessment of the existing plan, and also next steps. The first question is, what is greenhouse gas and what is the importance of the plan and to reduce its emission? To explain greenhouse gas, the image shown shows a relationship between the sun, atmosphere, and earth. When sunlight reaches the earth, some energy is reflected back into space, some is absorbed, and some heat is absorbed by the greenhouse gas. There are 4 main gases that are trap heat in the atmosphere, which is carbon dioxide, methane, nitrous oxide, and fluorinated gas. And these 4 main gases are good gases for us because it means that it keeps us warm and it also helps our plants grow. However, an increased amount of gas related to human activity is being released and trapped into our atmosphere and causing a negative impact and trapping too much heat, causing warmth to the earth. For example, carbon dioxide is a primary greenhouse gas emitted through human activities. Based on the Environmental Protection Agency, carbon dioxide accounts for 81.6% of the U.S. greenhouse gas emission from human activities. Carbon dioxide is naturally present in the atmosphere as part of the Earth's cycle. However, human activities includes combustion of fossil fuels and gasoline and diesels to transport people, food, and goods, and types of industries that increase carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. And to mitigate and reduce its emissions highlighted in our plan, the city and the community can look at changing our behavior with technology, plant more trees to absorb the carbon dioxide, and build better buildings that are energy efficient. Statewide, what causes increased amount of greenhouse gas emission into the atmosphere? The image provided by University of California, most of it comes from electricity and heat, agriculture and land, industry, transportation, food waste, and buildings. And for Burbank, mentioned in the plan, based on our 2010 total greenhouse gas emission inventory, most of it comes from transportation, accounting for 61%, energy, 36%, and the remaining 3% from water, wastewater, and solid waste. In response to the state regulations and assessing our greenhouse gas inventory, the city adopted the Burbank 2035 General Plan and the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Plan, which is a plan that we're talking about today. This plan is a tool that the city uses to quantify their share of statewide greenhouse gas emissions and establishes action steps towards achieving those local emission targets. Many of these strategies, including in this planning document, focuses on building and protecting neighborhoods in Burbank through responsible development, bike and pedestrian facility improvements, energy efficient construction and retrofit, better air quality, lower energy and water bills through conservation, and reduce waste to extend the lifetime of the Burbank landfill. In short, the success of these strategies relies on a shared effort by the city and the community to work together towards a safe, beautiful, and thriving community. The Greenhouse Gas Reduction Plan highlights that there will be an update to the City Council every 3 years, meaning that the first one would have been done in 2016, and the second one would be anticipated for 2019. While this is the first update to planning on the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Plan, the city makes an effort with environmental initiatives and have provided City Council and the public on master plans that are related to the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Plan. Such as in 2015, we updated the Recycle Master Plan. In 2017, we updated the Potable Water Distribution Master Plan. In 2018, we adopted Burbank Water and Power Integrated Resource Master Plan. And then in 2019, we updated the Street Lighting Master Plan. And coming up in 2020, Planning Board and City Council will hear more about our draft Complete Streets Plan. And since the adoption of the plan, staff has also have been providing updates on the general plan and the housing element. In the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Plan, there's 2-year target goals. There's year 2020 and 2035. For 2020, the goal is to reduce emissions by 15% of our 2010 jurisdictional emissions level. And through 2035, the goal is to reduce 30% below the 2010 jurisdiction emissions level. Highlighted in the plan, there are 5 key strategy areas to reduce our greenhouse gas emissions. There's building and energy, transportation, water conservation, waste reduction, and municipal. And each strategy area includes action steps, performance metrics, and quantified reductions. And reductions are based on participation rates, efficiencies of technologies to be implemented, and the extent of new infrastructure to be constructed, and other factors. And this methodology is included in our plan. So overall, in the plan, you'll see that there are 66 action steps towards those 5 key strategy areas. And for 2020 and 2035, there's 28 performance metrics each. Overall, based on the available data, the city has achieved 95% of the 2020 greenhouse gas reduction goal, falling only 5% short. The city has been successful in implementing measures and actions and an overall tracking of the measure implementation. And the city has exceeded the number of measures, making substantial progress towards the 2035 goal. And now I'm going to go through some of the key areas of each strategy. Strategy 1 that I mentioned, building and energy, you can see some of the measures recommends ways to increase energy efficiency in existing buildings, enhance energy performance in new construction, and increase renewable energy use. The second column highlights existing target reduction goals that's measured in metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions per year. And the third column shows the city's progress. And overall, in the green line, you'll see that some measures have exceeded the targets, are in progress, or have not been met. Collectively, the city has exceeded their 2020 target reduction for building and energy. An example of how the city implemented building and energy efficiency is the most recent development project that was approved by Planning Board and Council in 2019, called the Avion Project. The vacant 61-acre site is adjacent to the Hollywood Burbank Airport, and the project proposes to construct 6 industrial buildings totaling over 1 million square feet, 9 2-story office buildings totaling 140,000 square feet, 2 retail restaurant buildings of approximately 15,000 square feet, and a 6-story 150-room hotel. And this project is anticipated to be completed at the end of next year. So the sustainability features in this project include installation of rooftop photovoltaic as a renewable energy resource to attempt to reach up to the 10% of the project's on-site energy demand for renewable resources. The project also plans to plant approximately 1,200 trees, and there will be pre-wiring of 177 electric vehicle charging stations and installation of 115 level 2 electric vehicle chargers. It will also incorporate daylight lighting through glass and skylights for natural lighting. It will also recycle and reuse existing asphalt during construction, and it will also install cool roofs over industrial and office areas and new streets to incorporate the city's Green Street policy, as well as bike and pedestrian amendments consistent with the upcoming Complete Streets Plan. And it'll also be LEED certified certification for core and shell of the buildings. And those are the examples of some of the sustainability features in this project. For residential homes, the existing plan highlights solar photovoltaic rooftops and energy efficiency appliances such as smart thermostats. Burbank Water and Power has achieved actions supporting this measure by providing extensive information about solar photovoltaic. Burbank Water and Power has implemented a public outreach that also increases community participation in Energy Star appliances with purchase and installation. In addition, through public outreach, Burbank Water and Power provides rebates for Energy Star appliances. Some of them include certified ceiling fans, certified refrigerators, certified freezers, certified room air conditioners, certified dishwashers, and certified clothes washers. And Burbank Water and Power provides these appliances to income-qualified residents. While the city has achieved this measure, Burbank Water and Power estimate that this data only reflects 20% of the actual purchase of the installation of qualifying energy appliances. Also, there are some measures in the plans that have evolved over time, such as solar water heaters. Solar water heaters are energy efficient, but the use are solely dependent on the market demand. Burbank Water and Power previously had a rebate for solar water heaters to incentivize residents to install them. However, residents were more interested in other technology for water heaters, such as tankless or electric options. As such, this measure has lost its applicability, and since the market determines the demand for the solar water heaters and the lack of interest, even when there was a rebate program, the changing of the measure in the plan would be beneficial to highlight a new different performance metrics for us. Strategy 2 is about transportation that encourages public transit, carpooling, walking, and bicycling through transportation modes to decrease the need to drive. Overall, the city's effort in reducing emission is in progress. Looking at the table, the item that is in progress is 2.1, and that's Transportation Management Organization Expansion. The 2020 goal was to have 46% of total employees working in Burbank participate in a voluntary transportation demand management program that offers rideshare program, telecommuting, alternative schedules, and parking cash-out options. As of today, the rate for employee participation in that program is only 24% versus the 46%. And to help increase that participation, the city now requires new development projects that are moving forward to participate in the program through plan developments and conditions of approval. An area that we excel in is pedestrian enhancements. In November of last year, the city improved the implementation of a short-term infrastructure improvement project through the Safe Routes to School grant for Washington, Jefferson, and Muir School. The city changed the school speed zone to 15 miles per hour and amended the code for all-way stop signs on all roadways adjacent to the school. This was a $500,000 grant that the city received and was recently completed in early 2019. This project helped build a better Burbank by maximizing pedestrian and bicycle safety, accessibility, connectivity, and education. It also encourages more students to walk and bike to school. It also increased the health benefits through physical activity and improve the air quality and lower our greenhouse gas emissions. An area that is in progress is expanding our bicycle infrastructure. The target in the plan highlights building miles of bicycle infrastructure. One of the examples of city's progress is the Burbank Channel Bikeway project that was recently approved by City Council in July of this year. This project is a 0.7-mile off-street bike and pedestrian path that would be located directly adjacent to the Burbank Western Channel. The 12-foot wide path will begin in the downtown Burbank Metrolink station and proceed south of the Alameda Avenue. The project is intended to enhance the connectivity of local and regional bike path and transit network and provide a safe and alternative driving. It is also to beautify the neighborhood through the creation of a landscape pathway along the channel. The project is a result of a 2009 Metro call for projects application, and groundbreaking was just last Thursday, as anticipated to be completed in summer of next year. In addition, the city has specific requirements for providing permanent and temporary bicycle parking facilities as part of planned development projects. The third strategy area is water conservation. Water conservation promotes the efficiency use of conservation of water in buildings and landscapes. The table shown highlights that we are close to hitting our target. So when you're in Burbank in a park or walking through the streets near a landscape, you probably have seen these purple signs of how the city uses recycled water. In the greenhouse gas reduction plan, the target goal is to use 1 billion gallons of recycled water annually. Since the adoption of the plan, the city has been reaching towards the goal. In fiscal year 16-17, we hit 0.98 billion gallons annually, and in fiscal year 17-18, we hit over 1.07 billion gallons annually. The city has also updated the 2015 Urban Water Management Plan and is making efforts to expand the recycled water system. For example, in October of 2017, City Council approved a cooperating agreement with Caltrans. As part of the Interstate 5 Empire Avenue interchange project that we see currently happening, Burbank and Water and Power has identified an opportunity to expand the city's recycled water system by providing a second transmission line across the Interstate 5 at the new interchange. The proposed of this second freeway crossing is to improve system reliability and to provide a recycled water system service for landscape irrigation to other new interchange and the Leland Way Streetscapes project, and to further the city's policy of expanding opportunities to provide recycled waters to city and other facility. The fourth strategy is waste reduction to increase solid waste diversion, recycling, reducing consumptions of materials that otherwise end up in the landfill. Some of the measures in the greenhouse gas reduction plan highlights percentage of food scraps and yard waste diversions. Based on the table shown, the city is in progress and right now we're in current stages of working through a residential composting program, and we've hired a consultant to assist with those efforts. The last strategy area is municipal. This is a qualitative measure to identify additional supporting steps that the city can take to implement the greenhouse gas reduction plan and promote community-wide sustainability concepts. The first one is to find funding for a sustainability coordinator, and that's in progress. And the other is to create a sustainability element that is also in progress. And staff is looking for funding opportunities to implement that plan. Staff is also planning to update the housing and safety element of the Burbank 2035 General Plan in the upcoming year. So based on that assessment, overall, I've highlighted that some performance metrics were met, in progress, or unmet for reasons that were presented. There are also other factors that should be taken into consideration for the plan, which may call for an update to the existing plan. So that includes state regulations, Burbank and Water and Power's 2019 Integrated Resources Plan, new and old technology related to efficiency, and transportation electrification activities. One of the most important reasons why the city should update the greenhouse gas reduction plan is to ensure the city's goal aligns with state mandates, particularly Senate Bill 32, which is the legislation that establishes the statewide greenhouse gas reduction target. And right now, the state is at 40% below the 1990 levels by 2030. There are also 3 other important state mandates for organic waste that are applicable to the city. That includes Assembly Bill 1826, AB 876, and SB 1383. AB 1826 requires businesses that generate a specific amount of organic waste per week to arrange for recycling services for that waste. Organic waste includes food waste, green waste, landscape pruning waste, non-hazardous wood waste, and food, soil, water waste that is mixed with food waste. And public works staff is currently working with private haulers and requiring them to report this information on a quarterly basis. AB 876 addresses long-term planning for organics infrastructure by requiring counties and regional agencies to report information annually, and that just commenced in 2017. SB 1383 is one of the most recent environmental legislation that builds upon California's leading commitment to reducing greenhouse gas emission and air pollution by establishing methane emissions reduction targets and a statewide effort to reduce its emissions of short-lived climate pollutants. And in light of these state regulations, the city staff is recommending to update the greenhouse gas reduction plan for 2020 to ensure consistency with state mandates. The city adopted the 2019 Integrated Resources Plan in December of last year in accordance to requirements of Senate Bill 350. Senate Bill 350 would increase utility renewable portfolio standards requirement by 50% by 2030, and Burbank Water and Power anticipates our renewables equivalent to be 67%. This document is a long-term planning document designed to provide policy guidance for Burbank and Water and Power electric supply to its customers over the next 20 years, and these policy guidance focuses on reliable, affordable, and sustainable electric services to Burbank. In conjunction with this plan, Council has established an aspirational goal to achieve 100% greenhouse gas-free power supply for Burbank by 2040 or sooner. Burbank Water and Power will continue to pursue cost-effective energy efficiency and demand response programs to fulfill California energy requirements. Another reason to update the greenhouse gas reduction plan is to address new and old technology related to energy efficiency highlighted in the plan. Before relying on old technology such as the solar water heaters system, Burbank Water and Power presented at the October 1st council meeting about designing time-varying energy rates that encourages residents to shift their consumption away from higher cost periods to lower cost periods. Time of day rates helps the city achieve its reliability, affordability, and sustainability goals by informing customers through pricing about when costs are lower to deliver electricity, which then helps lower greenhouse gas emissions. Smart pricing also helps better match the city's electricity use for its future power supply portfolio with lower energy bills and lower greenhouse gas emissions to help reduce rates. And within the Integrated Resources Plan are transportation electrification activities to help meet the goals of the greenhouse gas emission reduction related to AB 32, that Governor Brown Emission Vehicle Action Plan that calls for a goal of 1.5 million electric vehicles on the road by 2025. Transportation electrification activities is an essential strategy of Burbank Water and Power and utilities across the state to fulfill the glowing gut of excess of daytime electricity. Over the past 8 years, Burbank and Water and Power has accomplished by obtaining federal grants, including $165,000 from California Energy Commission. They've also installed 42 electric vehicle charging stations at 14 sites, including a level 3 fast charger at the Lakeside Shopping Center on Pass Avenue and 16 new chargers for our Burbank Town Center in downtown. They've also created a rebate program that incentivizes customers to use electric vehicles and install electric vehicle chargers at level 2, which offers customers a rebate of $500 for homes and up to $2,000 for businesses. And they've also implemented the city's workplace smart electric vehicle charging pilot program in 2017 for Burbank Water and Power's larger commercial customers, which allows them to understand how to best manage loads to integrate renewable energy. And selected participants receive an average incentive of $2,700 per charging connector with control capability. And this information about electric vehicle would be important to include in our calculation for greenhouse gas emission reduction. So that is our assessment of the existing plan. The city has achieved 95% of its 2020 target goal, falling 5% short, and the city has been successful in implementing measures and actions in the overall tracking measure implementation. As part of the next step, staff will continue to review the existing action steps and performance metrics to meet the 2020 goal. However, to ensure the city aligns and meets new state regulation and to calculate accurate greenhouse gas emission reductions of the city efforts, city staff recommends to update the 2020 plan and to address the changes. As part of the proposed update, there would be a community outreach. We would provide city council an update, and we will also develop a monitoring and reporting tool and have that information available on our city's website. So this concludes the presentation, and staff recommends to receive and file the report and direct staff in drafting a proposed revision to update the greenhouse gas reduction plan and to also receive your input. If you or the public has any questions for us, I put Fred and myself contact information up there. And then also we have our consultant, Rincon, who helped us with the assessment of our greenhouse gas emissions reductions. Thank you.
Thank you for that extensive report. At this time, what's the board's pleasure? Any questions for staff or the consultant? Ms. Liu? Oh, Mr. Gamboa?
Yeah, hi. Thanks for the excellent report. I had a couple questions on methodology. In terms of the Avion project, how does that count towards reduction in greenhouse gas when it's all new square footage? And then for the tree section, I see a lot of proposed planted trees are counted. What about trees that have been lost, either through construction or death or whatever, that they've been removed?
I'm glad that you brought that up. So when we were doing the assessment to calculate our emissions, we took into consideration of projects that have already been completed and the ones that we anticipate to be completed by 2020. With Avion, their groundbreaking starts pretty soon, and we're anticipating that that whole project will be completed next year. So we included their statistics into our calculation for emissions.
And if I can add, Karen, in the greenhouse gas reduction plan, there was actually, I think it's like over 10 million square feet of non-residential square footage that was calculated into the emissions. So the actual calculation of this new construction, which we haven't actually built out that much square footage over the the start date of the greenhouse gas reduction plan. So by building out 1 million square feet of non-residential industrial, and then accounting for the fact that cool roofs and the photovoltaics, as well as the shade trees that help cool the buildings, all those factor into that calculation because they're well within those projected thresholds of development that were to occur that haven't occurred yet.
Thank you again for that report. And kudos to the Burbank city employees for all of their amazing work. This is very impressive that you've met the majority of these goals. A few questions. So for the ones that you've achieved or exceeded, I'm assuming you're continuing to work on that. Just because you met that goal, you're not going to stop. Okay. So that was one of my questions. The other one in terms of, I see here that the sustainability coordinator, is that something that you've not been able to bring on because of funding issues?
I can speak to those. So as far as the sustainability coordinator, there was action items towards the city manager's office to look at whether to hire a new person, or in this particular case, kudos to Karen as one of the analysts, one of the primary analysts, worked on it and coordinated with the other departments. So I think our approach, just from a cost saving standpoint, is to put measures in place, systems in place that would allow a lot of the tracking to be done with technology, and then have individual kind of lead people at the different departments that are responsible members of the greenhouse gas reduction plan, and then look at the possibility of funding kind of like a stipend or one of those things for a analyst that could then actually work on it. So I think it's almost like coordinator by committee through the process, and it's just an issue basically of funding, and then also an opportunity to actually cross-train people, so that if that individual leaves, we're not like stuck, because there's going to be actually individuals trained within each of the departments to report their information in a standardized manner to whoever the assigned analyst is doing the work.
Great. That seems like a good strategy. I also know too, in case there, if you're looking for perhaps fellows to come in and work on this, like Core Fellow, Fuse Fellows, they're a great resource to bring in some expertise that may be needed in this regard. And I know of your sustainability element that you're looking to research grants and funding opportunities, and maybe a Fuse Fellow or Core Fellow could help you do that. The last question is, there was a gentleman, I believe it was Mr. Goldstein, who asked about mandatory versus voluntary measures, and I just wanted to give you the opportunity to respond to his question.
So in the plan, he is right. There are mandatory and voluntary measures, and both are important, and some of them, it would be hard, depending on what it is. Sometimes it can be hard to demand someone to install certain types of energy efficiencies to their home. There could be factors that could impede on them installing or purchasing such a type of equipment. And so he does bring up a good point, but we'll need to look at both to have mandatory and voluntary measures.
If I can add, I think I can add a little bit more. There are certain components in here, like when we talk about energy audits, where we were going to require, or as part of our requirements, when someone goes to put a property up for sale, that they would have to actually hire a certified individual to do an energy audit, and they would provide that to the prospective buyer, so that that individual can then look at whether they wanted to incorporate certain efficiencies, right, as far as improvements to the building to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. There was also a provision that at the time of an actual industrial building or a commercial building being turned over, that there would also be an assessment done, an audit done, that would then be provided to the buyer, and that buyer would then have the voluntary option of implementing certain aspects that were noted. And clearly, I wasn't here in 2013. None of us actually were here in 2013 working on this. But one of the things that I think is going to be really key with the greenhouse gas reduction plan update, and this is probably a fault of the planners, is that we tend to come up with really what seems to be kind of a really great plan, but in a little bit of a vacuum. And I think what we found through this process, Karen and I, is as we talked with the individual departments, we realized that certain things no longer were effective and other things could be enhanced, and that they have different programs that didn't exactly meet the metrics that were in here, but they were just as important at mitigating or reducing emissions. So moving forward on an update, we really need to engage the potential stakeholders. So in the case of audits, where we're going to basically impose as part of a real estate deal, an audit, that's something that I think we need to talk to the stakeholders, i.e. real estate agents and even property owners. Is this something we want to do? There are other things that have happened since 2013, like the updates to the California Building Code, which that building code update is going to be happening soon. Photovoltaics, where it was before kind of in rebate programs to encourage people to install them on their homes. Well, start of January 2020, when you build a new home, you're putting photovoltaics. And so there are things that have happened over the 2013 to 2019 period that in essence have created things that are more prescriptive via state mandate, where we probably wouldn't have done as good a job if it wasn't for that. And I think the lesson learned here is, as been noted by the community, is that we continue to be vigilant in looking at the metrics, looking at the action steps, and taking 2020 to be a key time to amend them and update them so that we continue to be consistent with state mandates. One of the reasons that people look at the greenhouse gas is the ability to be able to streamline further environmental review. Most of the projects, the large projects, have their own EIR, so they go through their own analysis. But this is an opportunity when we talk about streamlining new housing, where if we do this right moving forward and implement things, it could be a lot more, for better, for worse, no pun intended, streamlined in tracking how we're doing, how effective we're doing, and at the same time facilitating new development that's in line with the plan. So those are the kind of things that I think we noticed over time. And I will say, even though we're 5% short, I still argue that we still have 2020. So we may actually get closer to that. The other prescriptive thing that has happened is since First Street came on board, that's when I started, all the large planned development projects actually have conditions of approval that implement many of the components. So as far as cool roof requirements, photovoltaics, a lot of it is either condition of approval or building code. There are components for building elevated bike lanes, like in the case of First Street. The adding of additional trees, the 1,200 new trees over at the Avion site, which had basically maybe a handful of palms, I think, along the street frontage. And when it comes to projects that may come to you in the near future, there are other components to actually have, actually it's actually in Avion as well, is we have TMO is mandatory, and parking pass, stipends for, or basically credits for people to use like Metrolink passes are part of it. So in essence, the developer is subsidizing the ability for people to use alternate modes of transportation, which are all things that were encouraged in the plan, but they're now being required as conditions of approval for the project. So
that's great. Thank you very much.
Ms. Hadian?
I have a question about the jurisdiction. What is the jurisdiction defined in 2010? Jurisdiction on emission? Is it like county? Is it state?
So those levels are specifically for the city, and let me go back to the PowerPoint. It is on slide. So when we talk about the 2010 jurisdictional emissions level. It's based on metric tons of carbon dioxide emissions per year. And based on our inventory, there's like a measurement of what that is for for Burbank at that 2010 year. And so here on the PowerPoint that or for the slide that talks about assessment, you can see what that 15% emission goal is for Burbank. So the number 45,677, that's the metric tons of carbon dioxide of 15% of our total inventory level.
So in Burbank only.
Ah.
So we don't deal with county or state.
Correct.
When we talk about jurisdiction, the jurisdiction is Burbank.
Correct.
And the greenhouse gas emission the inventory that you have here on this slide is from 2010 or 2013.
2010. So when we implemented the 2013 plan, it was based on 2010 data.
So the base numbers are from 2010. Jurisdiction is Burbank, and the first inventory started in 2013 to compare with 2010. And any updates will be based on how much we go less than the limits for 2010.
Correct. So for 2020 target update and the 2035, it'll still be based on the 2010 jurisdictional levels.
If I can
It's
add,
like a-
if I can add, board member and chair, just one of the things to keep in mind, the numbers that Karen pointed out correctly are those that the city is trying to reach. But when you read the greenhouse gas reduction plan, it talks also about statewide efforts. The majority of it being that through efficiencies and improvements in transportation and energy production, that there are certain efficiencies that are projected to also reduce greenhouse gas emissions that actually complement the city's efforts. So I don't want to just I don't want it to come across maybe where we're understating the fact that it's not just the city's effort, it's our effort piggybacking on top of what's expected to actually occur through state mandates and additional requirements. So as efficiencies with technology and transportation happen, efficiencies or changing our model as far as how we get our energy, like if we go to solar and wind, those are the two, when you looked at the percentages in one of the slides that Karen had, it showed the biggest generators were transportation and energy. So we the city, when you're talking about putting photovoltaics on a home, sure, that'll be one piece of a small, it's like the grain of sand. But the reality of it is that the larger lion's share is going to be a collective effort for doing it kind of citywide with different efforts that are noted in the plan, as well as the efforts that the state is undertaking. So I wanted to make sure when you looked at those numbers, it's a big chunk when you look at it all together, and keeping in mind that in the plan we actually factor out airport emissions from landings and takeoffs because we don't have oversight over that, and it's discounted by that number. So I wanted to make sure there's a lot of moving pieces when we talk about carbon emission reductions. It's a collaborative effort between the city, the state, to find ways to kind of target those areas. So there's stuff we can do boots on the ground here, but there's other things that are going to be greater than the city, i.e. enhancements or improvements of, photovoltaics, electric vehicles. If we push out more electric vehicles, if the feds provide more funding to basically support more infrastructure, then there's an opportunity to get more fossil fuel burning vehicles off of it as technology enhances for the big rigs that are bringing the big, containers from the port, and those transition to electric, the Tesla trucks, all those things. Collectively, those efforts with improvements on gas consumption and the refinement of gas to reduce those kind of things, all those things together are the collective effort. So it's not solely on the city, but the city has to play a part to reach those levels because they're very ambitious over that period of time.
So the numbers, there should be a base for the numbers to adjust and to reduce based on those levels. Those numbers are set by our city or
we set a benchmark
county?
of 2010, and we're also, as Karen noted, AB 32 and some of those other bills set goals for the whole state, and then we have to do our part to help get to that level. So certain things apply like to the public utility that was noted in the integrated resource plan, where they're trying to hit certain goals. The city council said aspirationally, we want to go 100% renewable in 2040. It exceeds what the state requirement is, but it's not less than the state. And there's others that apply to us locally to hit some of those targets of enhancing carbon reduction so that we hit those milestones at the different dates that are set by the state.
And you mentioned something about the airport. Is that also included in transportation and energy combined? Or?
It's I don't know if you have it in front of you, but in the greenhouse gas reduction plan, it's actually on table 3-1. It notes airport LTO only. That means landing and takeoffs. That's when they generate those emissions. And what it's been done is it's actually been factored out, discounted, so that when we're looking at our jurisdictional emission inventory, the baseline, it's already factored out.
Where do you have that information? Do I
It's
have
table 3-2, which is page 3.4 of the greenhouse gas reduction plan. So you
and we can get that.
have summaries of everything, but you've received this before. This is the greenhouse gas reduction plan.
Not a part of these.
It's
here.
not specifically in there, but the actual plan you have. So what we provided in the document is a summary of all those numbers.
And do we have a list of contributing factors to the greenhouse gas emission in Burbank per transportation, energy, and the rest of the items?
Yes, the pieces of how the city contributes, whether it be in transportation, energy, it's in pieces through those performance metrics. So it highlights what's causing the emissions and how we're reducing it.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Mr. Gamboa?
So your conversations did answer a lot of other questions and thoughts I had coming up, but before we kind of break from this session, because I had a couple questions you answered, but I just want to have some comments for the update as you go forward. I haven't read the full plan yet. I don't have it, so I was just looking up online. So I'll do more reading on that before we go on the full update so I can better respond. But in general, it seems that they're in the summaries, and I think going forward, Fred touched upon it about where we're getting our electricity from. So I think it's important to maybe highlight that, even if we're attaining it or it's a different thing, just to highlight that with this emphasis on electricity means that we're not shifting our greenhouse gases somewhere else, that it's actually, renewable. And then I think there needs to be the transportation section needs a little bit more emphasis on other transportation. I think our metrics was all about bike and ped and everything. Even doing a quick search in the plan, I didn't see any mentions of a bus, like actual mass public transportation, and potentially electrifying those buses, providing better service, maybe using trips as a quantifiable, measurable thing to track. Same with maybe bike trips, bike counts. And we have a lot of rebates and opportunities for electric charging and everything, which is great. But with the advent and the improvement of e-bikes, those can take a lot of local trips off the road, and they're becoming more attainable and more affordable. And there's new state laws that provide rebates for e-bikes as well, like the Cash for Cars thing. If we can incorporate something that can encourage people to use that as viable transportation for longer trips. You can do 2, 3, 4 miles without breaking a sweat on an e-bike. So that can be a really great way to reduce some greenhouse gas emissions. Also talking about VMT as the threshold that we're going to be measuring for EIRs going forward next year. I think that's an important thing to really think about what those greenhouse gas emissions are. And parking, just how we're allowing for parking, because we get a new project, brings in a ton of parking spaces, and it's really easy for people to park. They're going to automatically choose parking at Avion. There's going to Measurelink stations there, but if they get free parking right there, they're going to choose to drive and create those extra emissions. So that needs to be part of, I think, a comprehensive strategy for the greenhouse gas reduction.
Good points. Thank you.
Anything else? I just have a couple of comments. I'm not sure the greenhouse gas plan, how it's reconciled or taken into consideration with the housing element that I guess we deal with day in and day out. Obviously, there's a great number of individuals who commute to Burbank. So if we could take that element out of the commute, I think we would surpass all the set goals. So by making housing more difficult, meaning more onerous for investors or whether it be families or anyone that wants to make modifications or changes to accommodate maybe a couple of more individuals, let's say a family of 4 wants to have their in-laws live with them, or a family of 2 wants to have their children, a couple of them come back and live with them. And it's such an onerous project to have, process to go through, oh, I like to add 2 rooms. Well, you know how that process goes. So that would be, I think, one consideration. How do you adjust housing to eliminate all these other things that we need to take into consideration, like, let's say, as suggested by Mr. Gamboa, a bike, 3-4 miles, right? Well, you have to be living here. If you work on this side of Burbank and you want to go to Disney, that's the other side of Burbank, that's 3-4 miles, right? But if you're not living here, you may have difficulty maneuvering yourself. The other thing is the shifting consumption idea that's being thrown around. We can't change work schedules and we can't change school schedules. So to implement that type of a program without taking into consideration the percentage of the population that's kind of committed to the hours that they have to be at work versus and hours that they have to accommodate their children, taking them to school and picking them up. And there are certain hours in a day where you have to do your laundry, right? You can't do it while you're not, you can do one load maybe via the smartphone, but how do you take it out of one machine and put it in the dryer? That doesn't work. So that's another thing. The shifting consumption, I'm not sure how creative one can get with that, and because it's going to shift cost. Basically, it's a shift of cost. That's exactly what it is. And for me, it's a non-starter. And the third comment that I wanted to make, this aspiration of putting 1.5 million vehicles on the road or whatever number that is, well, what is the underlying infrastructure that is going to support that? Is it going to be nuclear energy that's going to support that? Is it going to be wind? Is it going to be solar? Is it going to be steam? What is the underlying energy? Coal? What is going to be supporting those 1.5 million cars plugging into a wall outlet or a house outlet? What's going to support that? How do you get that? So it's important that, lofty goals are fantastic, but I think a common sense approach where, okay, we'd like to do this, but how do we get there? How are we making this happen? So greater thought has to be given to the processes that get us that goal versus setting a goal and then trying to figure out how we're going to get there. Because then it becomes a hodgepodge, I think. So those are just my comments. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Are we closed? Ms. Lu, you have a question?
Oh, I was just going to move to,
Okay. Any motions?
yes. I move that the staff, that we recommend that the staff's recommendation to receive and file this report, and the planning board shall provide staff with input regarding the city's GGRP and proposed 2020 updates.
Any second?
And just for the record, everything that you've all commented is that direction as far as we move forward to present this to council. So thank you very much.
Okay.
So if you want to make a second to it, just so we have it on record, we brought it
Right.
to
Second.
you. So there's a first and a second. It sounds like it's unanimous from everybody.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All right.
Thank you.
Well, now we move on to the approval of the minutes of August 26, 2019 meeting.
I'll move the minutes.
Second?
A second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye. All right, items from the planning board. Any items for introduction for future meetings? Obviously, we can't talk about them now, but we can introduce them for future meetings. Agenda item?
I don't know. Oh, go ahead. I don't know how this might work for a future agendized item, but in light of AB 68, maybe the ADU and junior ADU state legislation, maybe kind of a report on, not necessarily a report, but I'm more interested in how it maybe relates to the case we heard last meeting with the home improvement square footage and how that, if that could change anything or not, in general, how that might affect things going forward in the city.
Okay, we'll agendize this item for a future meeting. It might not be the immediately next one, but for one of the upcoming ones, for sure before the actual statute takes effect.
Could that also include maybe perhaps a blurb on FARs?
It'd be all inclusive.
Okay. All right. City planner comments?
Just one thing. This is a follow-up. We currently have an Art and Public Places Committee. So as one of the development impacts when we get new projects is that there's a set aside of monies or funds that get used for public art. And there's an actual committee. And one of the planning board members typically sits on that committee. So I believe last time we had board member Eaton, Vice Chair Eaton, was sitting on the board. She's no longer here. So it's an opportunity for you all to, I don't know, draw straws, or maybe someone's interested in being on the committee. But we'd like to see if anybody can, take on that extra work.
When does the committee meet and day and time?
I should have known that. I don't have it off the top of my head. We can double check right now, actually.
If unless anyone else has any strong opinions, I'd be interested in being on this committee.
Fantastic. Mr. Gamboa. Mr. Gamboa.
Sold.
Thanks, Matt. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Gamboa has volunteered.
Is everybody unanimous that you guys are okay? Or someone else want to jump in?
Well, I think
Can I make
I
the
think
motion?
Vice Chair Rosori and myself have already made our
Yeah.
opinions
okay.
known. Ms. Liu?
Thank you. That's great. Thank you.
We'll get you the time and the date, so you guys. But thank you.
Well,
for,
now you're the
taking one for the
designated
team.
person. Thank you. But this won't be forever, only for the next 3 years.
You can. We'll leave it up to you as far as what the policy is when you want to rotate at the year. Thank you all too. There, I believe some of you attended a training that was held by the city clerk and city attorney. So thank you very much. I think there was 2 days of training that you guys participated in. I happen to have the pleasure of sitting in on the first half of the city clerk's presentation, and then I believe they went through the Brown Act. So thank you very much. That's helpful. It also helps for us. It's a good refresher too, as far as when we bring things back to you and the process that we undertake. So I think both Ian and Joe, our city attorneys that come to these meetings, as well as staff, I think it'll help, the working relationship, improve the efficiency of how we interact, and make sure we don't get in trouble collectively. So.
Isn't there another one on the 31st?
I believe so, yeah. There was one last week, and I think there's one
Correct.
coming up. So.
All right. Any other comments? All right. Well, I find this meeting closed. I declare this meeting closed and will adjourn until the next special meeting that's going to be held on November the 4th, 2019.
So let me just clarify. There is there's still the special meeting still happening on the 4th. There is a site visit to 777 Front Street on November 2nd, and that's at 10 o'clock, and it's at the location. So the gates will be open. You'll be able to park there. So we're hoping that all the board members can attend that meeting. If you've attended before, we basically get you on a bus. We drive the perimeter of the site because it's somewhat uneven, and then we'll drive around the immediate area. And during that process, the developer will walk you through the project, and you can ask questions.
Thank
So,
you, Mr.
okay.
Ramirez. Well,
Are there any special clothing requirements for that, like closed shoes or anything like that?
I'd say comfortable closed tennis shoes. I don't think you want to go open toe, ladies or gentlemen, sandals. I've seen people come like that. But it's all going to be around the edge of the property. So, and we'll have a police escort since we'll be driving in and slowing down in travel lanes. So we'll have someone behind us, probably a motor cop.
All right, we'll see you all hopefully see you all on November the 2nd at the site, and then later on November the 4th.